Today's episode of The Completionist is sponsored and brought to you in part by Netmarble's Phantom Gate, a fun, stylistic RPG available on iOS and Android today. In the game, you get these things called Phantom Souls, and you can level them up similar to that of other games, and there's over 300 of these cool monsters that join you in the battle against Odin. If you want to check out a cool Let's Play of that, you can head over to youtube.com/superbeerbros, where Alex and I played a few episodes of that, and if you want to get the game, just click the link in the description down below. With that said, enjoy today's episode. Soul Calibur is a niche within a niche. Fighting games are hardly the most popular genre, and even the most devout fighting fanatics are far more likely to be drawn to the various Street Fighters, Tekkens, and Mortal Kombats of the world. But at one point, a Soul Calibur game was called the best fighting game of all time, and by some people, as the best game of all time, period. Its fast-paced, weapon-based combat and sheer glut of content established Soul Calibur as a premier name in the world of fighting games. And I'll find out if that praise is warranted when I turn back the clock and complete the original Soul Calibur. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist. This week, we're traveling back to the 16th century, a time of... Yo, dudes, is this going to be one of those games where we go back in time and it's like historically disguised as something real, but really it's not?
No, it's historically inaccurate.
Oh, so it's like totally... Are you sure it's not? We're not going to learn anything about like the Great Wall of China?
No,
or it's just...
No. You're in the clear. There's evil cult golems.
Okay.
Anthropomorphic lizard dudes.
Okay.
There's ghost pirates.
Ghost pirates.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right, I'm in. I'm into that. Yeah. Let's. That sounds sick. Yeah. Voldo. I forgot about Voldo. Hell yeah. Today, guys, we're taking a look at the original Soul Calibur. Let's do this.
Yes.
In the 90s, you needed something to separate your 3D fighting game from the rest of the pack. Tekken had its limb-to-button correspondence, Dead or Alive had its abundance of ladies, and Virtua Fighter had, what did Virtua Fighter have again? Doesn't matter, those games are dope. So when Namco produced a game called Soul Edge, they had the balls to bring swords to a fist fight. A lot of people dug this weapon-based take on 3D combat, especially PlayStation owners in the UK apparently. And when a sequel was put into motion, the developers focused their efforts on ensuring that it would be a drastic improvement over its predecessor. And the way they did so was by basically just allowing players to go wherever the hell they wanted to go. It was called the 8-way run system, and it meant that fighters can now move freely in any of the 8 directions of the standard D-pad or joystick. Compare that to Tekken, the game in which the mere act of walking is hard as hell. This new 8-way run system apparently felt so good to the development team that they just decided to build the rest of the game around it. And by the time they finished upgrading the visuals and enhancing the cast, this new game was so different from its predecessor that they ditched the Soul Edge name altogether in favor of Soul Calibur. But get this, when the arcade version of Soul Calibur performed well, and they then ported it to the then new Sega Dreamcast in 1999, that port was undeniably better than the arcade version. We're not talking about further bridging the gap between arcades and home consoles. Soul Calibur basically soared right over that gap and flew straight into the horizon. First off, the arcade version's 2D backgrounds were replaced with fully 3D ones on the Dreamcast. Plus, there were all sorts of new modes and unlockable content on the console version, making a game that rocked players and critics to their cores. On top of selling over 1 million copies, this game got perfect scores from the likes of GameSpot, IGN, and Famitsu. A fighting game, the little genre that was blowing people away back in the day. Don't believe me? Let's hear from Sly Fox of the Three Master Gamers.
Soul Calibur is one of the first 3D fighting games that I really played as a kid. I think it's probably one of the best 3D ones that you could choose from Tekken and Street Fighter. Probably best arcade, easy to pick up for anyone who's not sure about 3D fighters.
Some still consider Soul Calibur, a fighting game, as one of the best games ever made, which seems incredible when you consider how many people out there are intimidated by and downright loathe the genre. But here we are with tons of sequels and spin-offs behind us, and with Soul Calibur 6 right around the corner. Word on the street is that this newest entry is going back to the series' roots in more ways than one, so now's a good time as ever to revisit where it all started. Well, not exactly where it started. It started with Soul Edge, but I'm just gonna kinda 8-way run right past it. I'm gonna follow the same playbook that I usually do when completing fighting games, and the first order of business is to beat the arcade mode with every single character. Pretty standard stuff, but I also have to do that at least one time on the hardest setting. And for all I know, this might be one of those games where the AI's got something to prove. We shall see. Next up, I'll have to unlock every character and every stage. About half of the playable roster is locked away when you first boot up, and on top of that, once those characters are unlocked, I'll have to take all of them through arcade mode too. Sure, why not? I'll aboard the crap to get done train, secret dudes. After that, I'll tackle the reason I'm completing the Dreamcast version of Soul Calibur, Mission Mode. It's a single-player affair that has you traveling from stage to stage, competing in matches with special conditions, and earning gold along the way. Now, even though this game was re-released on the Xbox 360, this mode was absent from that release. So I chose more completionist content over prettier visuals, because that's just who I am, y'all. And lastly, I'll have to spend all of that mission mode gold to unlock all of the artwork and rewards within the museum mode. This thing and the prices of the items inside grow larger the longer you play, so things could get hairy towards the end. Well, what the hell do I care? Ridiculous collectibles, grinding, all y'all get on the damn train. We're going straight to hell. Soul Calibur is like that weird kid in class. While everybody else is obsessed with the latest episode of Game of Thrones and their own Instagram profiles, Soul Calibur is scribbling romantic era poetry into its composition notebook. In essence, Soul Calibur avoids a lot of the tropes usually found in fighting games, and instead it makes choices that are as delightful as they are unusual. For example, I never realized how many fighting games revolve around the conceit of a tournament. It's a solid premise, it's easy to understand, it perfectly facilitates all of the ass beating going on, and it shows up everywhere, but not here. Instead, the story of Soul Calibur revolves around Soul Edge, the evil, shape-shifting, extremely powerful sword, not the earlier game in this franchise. For decades, Soul Edge has been in the hands of the dread pirate Cervantes, who slurps up the souls of any fools bold enough to try and claim the sword for themselves. That is, until the dream team of Sophia, a warrior sent by the Greek gods, and Taki, a mystical ninja. Cervantes is slain in battle, and part of Soul Edge is destroyed. But here comes Siegfried, a baby-faced knight, to things up for everybody. He claims the remnants of Soul Edge for himself, instantly becoming the malicious sword's bitch. Fast forward 3 years later, and Siegfried, now known as Nightmare, has been tearing ass all over Europe and collecting souls for the insatiable blade that he just had to have. And now there are more warriors than ever looking to claim Soul Edge for themselves, whether for righteous purposes or just cause it looks tight. Soul Calibur's premise may boil down to everybody chases the MacGuffin, but just like a tournament, it's easy to get and it sets up plenty of opportunities for confrontation between characters. What's important is that Soul Calibur definitely passes the fighting game narrative litmus test. The lion's share of characterization is done during and through actual combat. There may not be any tournament, but the World Warrior vibe is very strong here, with a diverse roster from all around the globe, representing several different cultures, motivations, and fighting styles, such as Kilik, the bow staff-wielding monk who seeks to destroy Soul Edge and be rid of the corruption within himself. Zheng Hua, a swordsman who searches for a weapon to counter Soul Edge. And Maxi, the dandy pirate captain and nunchuck master who seeks revenge against the one who killed his pirate crew. There's also Mitsurugi, a samurai mercenary who wishes to wield Soul Edge for himself. Astaroth, a soulless, axe-wielding golem who hunts the evil blade in the name of the cult that created him. Ivy, the daughter of Cervantes, who uses her living snake sword in her efforts to avenge her father. And Voldo, who defies all explanation except the fact that he's clearly the greatest fighting game character of all time. Throw in the previous mentioned fighters and the unlockable characters on top of that, and baby, you've got a stew going, full of unique playstyles, motivations, and designs. The visuals on those characters may not be anything special by today's standards, but it's still easy to see how Soul Calibur's graphics had people bouncing off the walls back in the day. Conversely, this game's animations have remained timeless. The way the characters move mid-fight is evocative, smooth, and entrancing. Whereas a lot of other 3D fighters were basing their fighter styles on real-life martial arts, Soul Calibur has dudes teleporting, hurling people 30 feet into the air, and becoming human helicopters. This is a beautiful thing. There's nothing wrong with Little Fantasy, especially when it looks this damn smooth. The stages are the perfect backdrops for all of these gorgeously animated shenanigans. With every character having their own stage, these backgrounds seriously help to characterize every member of the roster. Plus, each one is pretty as hell. So whether you're in the mood for a serene garden, a showdown at dusk, or whatever the hell this hellscape is, you're covered. But Soul Calibur's soundtrack is truly special. Its heavy use of orchestral arrangements fits the period setting perfectly. Moreover, these pieces of music seem like more than just mere character themes. They do more than just keep the battle flowing. These tracks have full-on movements to them, and there's a lot of different emotions that they evoke, ones that you usually don't associate with fighting games. It's just another example of how Soul Calibur does things differently, but wonderfully. This game actually gets me jazzed to learn more about history, like how Soul Edge may have incited the Cuban Missile Crisis, or how Nightmare's bloody campaign led directly to the locations of the current-day borders between European nations, or how the sudden disappearance of the lizard person race led to the rise of Google. And you can learn all about it at your local library.
Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. That's right. Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card.
Soul Calibur carves out a name for itself among other fighters with its unique combat system and sheer freedom of movement. Combat is fast, responsive, and rather intuitive. Soul Calibur also boasts a hefty amount of extra content and unlockables. Plus, satisfying the completion criteria isn't that bad at all, making for a great fighting game for both completionists and casual players alike. The first thing one might notice when picking up Soul Calibur, aside from how wide the Dreamcast controller actually is the game's unorthodox button scheme. Instead of lights, mediums, and heavies, or left punches and right punches, Soul Calibur employs horizontals, verticals, and kicks. Horizontals excel at hitting foes who prefer to dip into the third dimension. Verticals will bot people who rely too heavily on crouching, and kicks are generally pretty fast, letting you sneak in attacks between your opponents. And using combinations of these buttons result in techniques that blend the strengths and weaknesses of their components. It's simple and easy to understand, even for newcomers. Soul Calibur's move list is as expansive as it is intuitive. There's a unique move for just about every combination of button and direction on the D-pad, and those inputs will usually pull off something close to what you're expecting. Forward and horizontal is bound to send your character slashing forward at someone's face, while pressing down forward and vertical will usually launch your opponent. This natural logic helps you to jump from character to character at your whim. Even more impressively, the directional attack scheme perfectly complements the 8-way run system. You can move anywhere you want at any time in this game, but no matter how you're moving, there's a subset of attacks that can stop you, and that beautifully layered set of rock, paper, scissors is completed when you find your back against, well, not the wall, but against the edge of the arena. Thanks to ring outs, any fight can be over in an instant. It doesn't matter if you've played cautiously and intelligently. It doesn't matter if you've successfully maneuvered your opponent against the edge, because if you're not careful, he can still just flapjack you out of the ring like a punk ass motherfucker that he is. I love this game. And there are still more techniques that make fighting even richer, like guard breaks, parries, and soul charges. On the strength of its combat alone, Soul Calibur is a game you can happily play for hours with friends in versus mode. But arcade mode is where my completion journey began, and where my first unlockables came from. It's pretty standard fare, with 6 fights against random opponents, a 7th battle against a predetermined rival, and then a boss fight against Inferno, the malevolent spirit inside of Soul Edge, and clear indicator of the developers flexing the processing power of the Dreamcast. Okay, buddy, calm it down, we see you, we get it. The difficulty certainly ramped up as I played, but it never became a problem. And even when I lost, jumping back in was nearly instantaneous. The hardest part about completing arcade mode was the sheer amount of times I had to do so. However, being rewarded with new characters and stages each time I did, or at least the first 10 times I did, was great motivation. Soul Calibur does show its age a bit when it comes to those unlockable characters, as most of them are echo versions of dudes on the base roster. But I'm not complaining. In fact, each fighter that's based on another character possesses more than enough differences in their movesets to be considered their own characters. But when it came time to beat the game on the hardest difficulty, I just had to go with Voldo, a true individual, to get the job done. Soul Calibur's other modes include old standards like survival, time attack, team battle, and training. But if you're a single player type of person, mission battle mode is going to give you the most bang for your buck. It starts off simply. You pick a character, which you can change at any time, and you go to one of the few selectable missions on the world map of questionable authenticity. Each of these missions have their own settings, text-based scenarios, and battle conditions behind them. In some missions, your character is poisoned. In others, you'll slowly sink into the ground. And yet, in others, neon-colored rats will bite at your feet. If you need a palate cleanser from normal combat, mission battle will definitely break up the monotony. Each completed mission earns you points that you can spend in the art gallery, which is easily accessible from the map screen. There, you can unlock dozens of pieces of artwork across several different categories. Every now and then, you'll come across a piece that costs a little bit more than the rest, denoting an image that also comes with a special unlockable. We're talking new stages, new modes, and most importantly, more missions to complete back on the map screen. The more you play, the more you unlock, creating a great sense of progression and providing experiences that range from amusing to challenging. Hearing that fanfare each time you unlock something always feels great, even if it's just another section of the art gallery to fill out. But some of the unlockables that you get in mission battle mode are actually pretty astounding, like an exhibition mode where you can view characters' weapon katas, extra costumes for certain characters, and a mode called opening direction, which lets you change which characters appear in the game's opening cinematic. Since the opening uses in-game assets, you can just put any character wherever you want, and it can be pretty damn funny. But honestly, I think I can do better.
Namco.
mission battle mode was sometimes challenging, but never a problem. Failing a mission is inconsequential since you can just retry as many times as you'd like. And by the time I beat every mission, I had more than enough points to unlock everything in the art gallery. Even the rest of Soul Calibur's museum mode kind of completed itself without much extra effort from me. The only other aspects of it left to mention are the battle theater, where you can view CPU on CPU fights, and the character profiles, which filled in automatically as I beat arcade mode with each character. I don't know why I was so worried about completing this one when I had my patron Saint Valdo looking out for me the whole time. Thanks, big guy. Soul Calibur still got a few more unlockables up its sleeve. Namely, Edgemaster, the wise old martial artist who's unlocked when you beat arcade mode with every other character. He's actually a mimic, emulating a different character's fighting style every round, which is almost as impressive as his beard. Well done, old man. After you obtain Edgemaster, you can unlock the game's final character, the bright boy himself, Inferno. He too is a mimic character, but to unlock him, you have to beat arcade mode yet again, this time while using Xianghua in her third costume. Inferno may just be another mimic, but he's got a couple of moves all his own that prove why he's the boss of the game. Yeah, dude, we see you, okay? I get it. There are a couple of final rewards you get for completing Mission Battle Mode 2, namely a cool monochrome title screen for unlocking every single picture in the art gallery. And if you have Inferno unlocked when you finish up that gallery, you'll get a final gold title screen, the game's 100% bonus. It's not much, but it is appreciated. Honestly, it's a totally acceptable bonus for a game that's constantly giving you stuff. Completing Soul Calibur never once felt like a chore, and it's one of the most rewarding fighting games I've ever completed. After all, it reignited my love for learning about history. Libraries are one hell of a drug, kids. While I completed Soul Calibur, there were 21 arcade mode runs beaten, 82 missions completed, 338 pieces unlocked in the art gallery, 13 hours of total playtime, and $32.19 spent recreating Soul Calibur's intro. We know how to shoot on a budget here at TOVG. Soul Calibur is the total package. It has just the right amount of stuff to keep players interested and also keep completionists from losing their minds. No matter what kind of fighting fan you are, there's bound to be something within Soul Calibur that suits you, thanks to the tons of content and the fighting system that's refined to the point of timelessness. In an age where fighting games tend to skimp out on the single-player experience, Soul Calibur is refreshingly full of content, and yet it still manages to strike a nice balance between challenge and fun within its completion criteria. All of that right here on the Sega Dreamcast. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of complete it.
Complete it!
That's all the time we have for today, guys, so please, as always, let me know about today's episode somewhere on the internet. If you like what you saw, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button to make sure you're up to date on all of our content. We do videos every Wednesday and Saturday, and hey, we're having a great time. So excited for the end of the year. Q4 is coming up. Red Dead, so many good games. Smash, I'm ready. Stick around, I promise we're gonna have a great holiday season. You guys are awesome. Thank you to our sponsor, Fantic Gate, and we'll see you next week for another brand new episode. Bye!